Anyway, what I'm going to try to do is present Hafiz's cosmology. Now, what is cosmology? It's someone's view of God and creation and existence in general. And Hafiz is very specific about that. And I'm going to read this. It's 26 pages long. And I'll give it my best shot. Now, it's very detailed, so you have to pay attention. So here it goes. Hafiz Shiraz, known by his pen name Hafiz, was born in Shiraz, Iran in the early 14th century. Despite the passage of more than 600 years, he is still, without doubt, not only Iran's most popular poet, but also the most influential writer to ever take up a pen. As a figure from antiquity, little is known about Hafiz's life. Most accounts speak of his family as being either in the bakery or coal business. One day, while making deliveries for the family business, Hafiz sighted an aristocratic beauty standing on a balcony and fell completely in love with her. Well aware that, given their differences in social status, there was no way he could gain her hand, Hafiz resolved to obtain her through spiritual means. This meant completing the severe trial of the Chelanashini, practiced not just in Iran, but throughout the East. This is the same trial that Jesus went through in the Judean desert after being baptized by John the Baptist. It required the practitioner to stay within a circle for 40 days and nights without eating or sleeping. If successful, the desired boon was granted. So great was Hafiz's love for Shaki Nobat, branch of sugarcane as she was named, he succeeded. On the 40th night, the archangel Gabriel appeared and asked Hafiz his desire. Overwhelmed by Gabriel's radiance and the penetrating impact of his speech, Hafiz forgot completely about the mere branch of sugarcane and asked instead for God. For if the sunny beauty of Gabriel, being only God's messenger, was this resplendent, how much more must be the beauty of God? Still under the effects of Gabriel's speech, Hafiz began writing poetry. It was these attempts to capture the power of Gabriel's sublime words that led him to transform the Persian ghazal. And whereas others before him wrote poetic narratives about the intoxication of being in the company of divine beings, Hafiz crafted a form that actually produces this intoxication. In short, he crafted a poetic form of spiritual revelation. To begin an appreciation of how Hafiz created this new poetic form, we need to examine Hafiz's conception of the nature of God, how and why God brought about creation, and man's ultimate state after passing through it. Hafiz's presentation of this is in line with the basic tenets of Persian mysticism, this being that God, with the help of angels, formed man out of dust and wine. I'm quoting here, I'll read these couplets twice. Last night, in the effulgence of pre-eternity, I saw angels knocking on the door of the tavern. Inside, they were kneading clay with the wine of God's love and casting it into the form of man. Last night, in the effulgence of pre-eternity, I saw angels knocking on the door of the tavern. Inside, they were kneading clay with the wine of God's love and casting it into the form of man. In this description, there is a mixing of a divine essence with a substance that is material and separate from this divine essence. Hafiz upholds that this mixing is just that. God's eternal existence is never changed, impressioned, or altered in any way by his creation of creation and mankind. That is, to use a scientific term, creation is just a mixture. A compound is never formed. Both the wine, representing God's existence, and the clay, representing material creation, ultimately precipitate out from one another, just as sand precipitates out from turbid water, leaving God's uncreated nature unaltered in any way by his creation of the universe and humanity. As we read further, we encountered Hafiz's assertion that creation, rather than being something, is absolutely nothing. This nothing of creation having been created out of the everything of God. And this nothing, as Hafiz expresses over and over again, is absolutely nothing. Quoting, "The total production of the created universe is absolutely nothing. Bring wine, for everything in the material world does not exist." This complete separation of the two, God from his creation, is one of the basic themes of Hafiz's poetry. And as Hafiz sees it, the two are separate by virtue of one fact. The nothing of creation is relative, as it has a point of origin, making everything within it relative, whereas without a point of origin, there is no relativity in the uncreated existence of God. Moreover, there can be no relationship between the two, as lacking a point of origin, there is no benchmark within God for everything created and possessing the benchmark of origin to connect with. Hafiz refers to this here, quoting, "The ocean of love is an ocean without shore. In it there is no remedy save the drowning of one's soul. The ocean of love is an ocean without shore. In it there is no remedy save the drowning of one's soul." The shore mentioned here is a limitation or impression on the infinite existence of love as the only reality. Without this impression, there can be no relativity. Expressed another way, the two are like oil and water. As in God's non-relative shoreless being, there is no interface for the relativity of creation to adhere to. In the poetic expression of this relationship, Hafiz is faced with how to make the infinite, uncreated existence of God and the process of the creation of the nothing of the universe tangible to the created, limited, relative, rational mind of man. As he says, "How futile is imagining the vastness of the ocean. What impossible thoughts are in the head of this drop?" Or, "How can Hafiz use words to describe your beauty when the qualities of God are outside the perceptions of man?" Rather than revert to myth, as most do, that is, all of the world's great religions are based on creation myths, Hafiz writes from his own conception of this relationship. In so doing, he makes this the scaffolding for his poetic expression. Again, this is difficult, as being non-relative, there is no measure, substance, dimension, or time in God's uncreated existence, making this existence inconceivable to a form of perception born in time and space, the relative rational mind. Nevertheless, Hafiz attempts to do this in many different ways, but behind all of his writing is the presentation of God's absolute independence of everything in creation. This is qualified in many ingenious ways. Quote, "What measure do Hafiz's tears have before the independence of love, when in this typhoon the seven seas appear as a drop of dew? What measure do Hafiz's tears have before the independence of love, when in this typhoon the seven seas appear as a drop of dew?" Or, "Be careful, for when the wind of God's absolute independent nature blows, 1,000 harvests of obedience will not be worth half a grain of barley." Be careful, for when the wind of God's absolute independent nature blows, 1,000 harvests of obedience will not be worth half a grain of barley. Or, "Tell the sky not to show off its immensity, for in love the harvest of the moon is not worth a grain of barley, and the cluster of Pleiades is not worth two." Although it is inconceivable, having at least a sense of this infinite, uncreated, non-relative reality on the one hand, as opposed to the finite, created, relative illusion on the other, clears up much of the mystery in Hafiz's poetry. You all still with me?
No. Yes.
Okay.
No, it's fabulous.
Now it gets interesting. So we have analyzed how the creator and the creation remain independent from one another in Hafiz's poetry. Now we are going to take a look at why and how creation is brought about. As was the case with the establishment of God's independence from his creation, Hafiz uses precisely chosen metaphors to express his conceptions of the why and the how. In doing this, we will see that Hafiz's conception of existence, that is the creator, is monotheistic and infinite. And rather than just calling this existence God, he also calls it love. As it is infinite, love is faced with the great problem of having to create a situation allowing it to express its nature as love. Simply, how can love love when there is nothing other than itself? That is, love cannot be love unless it can express itself as love. And to do this, it has to have something or someone other than itself to love. But as love is an infinite existence, it is not possible for it to create or add anything onto itself. For if there were an empty space allowing for addition, love would not be infinite. It would be finite and limited by the void where it does not exist. There being a lack of space in love's infinity for the addition of creation, then it must be that creation supplants an area of love's existence, elbows it out of the way, as it were. But if this were the case, addition would actually be subtraction, as a line of division would be drawn separating love's infinity from its creation, and in the process, love would lose its infinity and become finite. Hafiz makes it clear that this can never happen, as God is infinite love, is in no way limited, affected, divided, or altered by his apparent creation of creation. That is, although love creates creation, love's infinity is not lost. Bearing this in mind, let's see how Hafiz describes this creation of the apparent separation of love into lover and beloved, allowing love to express its true nature as love. As an entree as to how love creates creation, let's start with the beloved's cheek, the beauty mark on it, and the relationship Hafiz establishes between this beauty mark and the pupil of the eye. In the process, we will also encounter Hafiz's referential poetic style, wherein referring to and comparing the qualities of one thing establishes in part the qualities of another. In this case, nothing is better suited for expressing the infinity of the infinite and how this infinity relates to the finite of creation than the pupil of the eye. The eye's pupil is round, minute, and black, yet it is able to contain vast vistas of sight and the effulgence of light. Hafiz makes it clear that the ability of the eye's pupil to contain limitless sight is because it is a reflection of the beauty mark on the beloved's cheek. By doing this, Hafiz establishes this beauty mark as representing all of creation. Quoting, "I hold the pupil of my eye dear, as it is a copy of your Hindu beauty mark. I hold the pupil of my eye dear, as it is a copy of your Hindu beauty mark." Or, "This black point that has become the orbit of light is a reflection of your beauty in the garden of sight. This black point that has become the orbit of light is a reflection of your beauty mark in the garden of sight." Or, "The orbit of sight of the pupil of my eye is the beauty mark on your cheek, the value of a priceless pearl only a pearl knows." The orbit of sight of the pupil of my eye is the beauty mark on your cheek, the value of a priceless pearl only a pearl knows. To further build this referential context, for the most part, the beloved's cheek representing God's, that is love's infinite, to further build this referential context, for the most part, the beloved's cheek represents God's, that is love's infinite, uncreated being. Quoting, "God, to whom in the world can I relate this point? The beloved who is everywhere has not shown his cheek to anyone." God, to whom in the world can I relate this point? The beloved who is everywhere has not shown his cheek to anyone. Or, both the worlds are a ray of manifestation from his cheek. I tell you the visible and the hidden both. Additionally, the beloved's stature is always presented as being perfectly erect. That is, without the curvature that produces relativity, whereas everything else is curved and thereby relative. This is the theory of relativity, by the way, for those of you who know it. Quoting, "May every cypress that appears in the garden be bent in service to your erect stature." Or, "In ecstasy, like a rose along the bank of a stream, I blossomed, for above me the shadow of that erect cypress appeared," meaning the beloved. Also, this erect stature and the beloved's unmanifest cheek are compared with one another. Out of desire for that cheek and that erect stature, a spring breeze arose in the meadow from beside the rose and the cypress. Out of desire for that cheek and that erect stature, a spring breeze in the meadow arose from beside the rose and the cypress. Now, bearing all this in mind, consider this couplet. On the day before the beginning of time, a black drop fell from your pen onto the moon as the solution to your problem. On the day before the beginning of time, a black drop fell from your pen onto the moon as the solution to your problem. I believe the problem mentioned here is how to create separation so that there can be a lover-beloved relationship, allowing love to express its true nature as love. Now, taking all of this together and considering again that it is not possible for an infinite existence to create anything, as to do so would actually be an act of destruction rather than creation, that is, divine love would lose its infinity, it becomes clear that love as the creator solves this problem by curving or bending its effulgence, much as clear light passes through a prism, is bent, and produces the illusion of colored substances. The black ink drop on the moon, the pupil of the eye, and the beauty mark on the beloved's cheek, as all three are black and spherical, suggests that the greater the curving of the effulgence of love, the greater the darkness, the greater the relativity, and the greater the separation, as one would expect if this reading holds true. This increasingly greater curvature spirals down into less and less effulgence until we arrive at the symbol for all of creation, the black drop falling onto the moon, or the beauty mark on the beloved's cheek. These black drops carry this symbol to its height. As being spherical, their curvature is complete, and in being black, there is an apparent absence of light. If this is the case, love's creation has to be an optical illusion and not a real existence. As seen here, Hafiz says this is so. Verdure spreads through the valleys and the fields. Come, don't waste the chance to be satiated with this beauty, for the world is only a mirage. Or, I presented this world and the next to my ripened heart. It knew immediately that everything save your love perishes into nothing. Or, for the sake of shade, do not be under obligation to the trees of paradise. For when, O flowing cypress, you look closely, all of this is nothing. To return to an overview for a moment, as love is the only existence, that is the primal force, it is not possible for love to express anything that is not its nature as love. Or, to put it another way, whatever love expresses is an expression of its true nature. It cannot express something that it is not because, as we have seen, in being infinite, it is the only thing that exists. Or, simply, in Hafiz's cosmology, there is only love. Bearing this in mind, to arrive at Hafiz's presentation of the final state of the lover, consider these descriptions of the fall from paradise. The beloved's curls are a trap, and the beauty mark the seed in the trap. In hope of gaining the seed, I have fallen into the trap. The beloved's curls are a trap, and the beauty mark the seed in the trap. In hope of gaining the seed, I have fallen into the trap. Or, I was a bird of the Spirit, singing from the top of Gabriel's tree in paradise. In the end, I was cast into the trap by the seed of the beauty mark on your cheek. I was a bird of the Spirit, singing from the top of Gabriel's tree in paradise. In the end, I was cast into the trap by the seed of the beauty mark on your cheek. Or, as a bird of the holy garden of paradise, what description can I give of the separation I experienced when I fell into this trap of phenomenon? As a bird of the holy garden of paradise, what description can I give of the separation I experienced when I fell into this trap of phenomenon? At first glance, it appears we have encountered a variation of the Judeo-Christian description of the fall. Reading more closely, however, reveals that paradise and Hafiz's conception of existence as a very inferior temporary state, as it is among the realm of the created, and as such can have no lasting existence. In fact, like the material world, paradise is absolutely nothing. In the season of the lily and the rose, the world has become the highest paradise, but to what avail when there is no eternity in it? In the season of the lily and the rose, the world has become the highest paradise, but to what avail when there is no eternity in it? So the fall of the soul from the realm of paradise into the trap around the seed of the beauty mark on the beloved's cheek, this beauty mark representing the entire realm of creation and separation, as we have seen, is actually beneficial, as the end result for the soul that passes through this realm is union with God, rather than a temporary relaxation in the illusory created realm of paradise that was the soul's residence before this fall took place. Reading further, we find that this black drop, rather than being a sinful flaw, as many might assume, or as we are told, is actually sacred. That is, creation is sacred. And rather the soul's fall into this realm being the result of the expulsion from paradise due to sin, it is actually because the soul, or God as love, cannot resist the beauty of separation, allowing for the lover-beloved relationship, represented by falling into the trap of the beauty mark. As this fall allows love to express and experience its true nature by having someone other than itself to love. In this sense, the fall is similar to the solution to your problem mentioned above when we were speaking about the black drop on the moon. Remember, arriving at an understanding of love's true nature is what we are up to. Elsewhere, Hafiz provides another description of the fall, this time using a grain of sand that forms a pearl. Love is the grain that forms the pearl. I am the diver in the ocean of the tavern, descending to see where I come up. Love is the grain that forms the pearl. I am the diver in the ocean of the tavern, descending to see where I come up. If there is any relationship between the beauty mark on the beloved's cheek and the grain of sand that forms a pearl, each causing the descent of the soul, then it is love that brings about creation, the soul's descent into creation, resulting in the ultimate expression of love's nature, the creation of a unique individuality, here and elsewhere represented by the pearl. The same process is expressed in two different ways. Returning for a moment to the black drop on the moon and the images associated with it reinforces our reading. The black drop falling on the moon symbolizes that this black drop is illusory, as the moon generates no light by itself, but merely reflects the sun. However, as is seen in many places, the light produced by this black drop and the moon is far greater than that produced by the sun. Quote, if the love-nurturing moon fully adorns itself, the sun of the east out of jealousy will tear open its cloak. If the love-nurturing moon fully adorns itself, the sun of the east out of jealousy will tear open its cloak. That is, the blackness of illusion generates a light far brighter than the light of the sun that lights this blackness of illusion. And Hafiz, the end result of the soul's passage through this sacred blackness of separation is the annihilation of just that, any separation. Expressed as fana by the Persian mystics as well as Hafiz, these couplets expressing the total annihilation of separate existence and the resulting union between lover and beloved are among the most beautiful in Hafiz's poetry. Like the candle of the morning, my life will end when it is lit by the sun of his compassion. Like the candle of the morning, my life will end when it is lit by the sun of his compassion. Or, no one from any side has seen the like of the one in whose search I have vanished from myself. No one from any side has seen the like of the one in whose search I have vanished from myself. Or, I swear by your soul, my sweet idol, that like a candle, my only intention in these dark nights is my own annihilation. I swear by your soul, my sweet idol, that like a candle, my only intention in these dark nights is my own annihilation. Or, I asked, when are you going to bestow your grace on this weak soul? He answered, when your soul is no longer in the way. Returning for a moment to our couplet at the beginning of this talk, this annihilation is the removal of the clay representing illusion from the wine representing God as love, with only love remaining. And Hafiz, after this annihilation, there remains a speck of dust on the beloved's foot, representing the lover who continues to exist after this annihilation has taken place. This speck appropriately contains a light far brighter than the sun's. Quoting, Although the sun of the heavens is the light of the world, it is the dust of your feet that gives the eye of the sun its brightness. Although the sun of the heavens is the light of the world, it is the dust of your feet that gives the eye of the sun its brightness. It is natural to think of this couplet as hyperbole, but when we consider it in the overall context of Hafiz's cosmology, it is obvious that it is not. For the end of the spiritual journey is, as is seen throughout Hafiz, the speck of dust on the beloved's threshold or on his foot. Yet despite the minuteness of this speck, it contains, as we see in this couplet and elsewhere, an effulgence far brighter than the sun's. Indeed, it is this speck of dust that is the source of the sun's light. To understand how this is possible, let's go back for a moment to the beginning and consider again that as love's existence is uncreated, there is no point of reference or benchmark within it to use to measure anything. Accordingly, from love's perspective, there is no size. Or to put it another way, everything is exactly the same size. This means that a speck of dust on the beloved's foot is the same size as the universe, which also means that the universe is actually a speck of dust. As Hafiz says, in the realm of love, the girth of a mountain is less than the waist of an ant. In the realm of love, the girth of a mountain is less than the waist of an ant. Now, and this is the important part, as everything created is absolutely nothing, nothing created has the power to in any way divide the infinity of existence. To do so, it would have to be something, and it is not something, it is nothing. What this means is that infinity is infinitely present in everything in creation, no matter how apparently minute that form may be. So now, back to our speck of dust resting on the beloved's foot. I believe that Hafiz uses a speck of dust in part to express that all of the curved relativity of the illusory creation, once producing darkness, has been removed with only the uncurved effulgence of God remaining, as one would expect with the God-realized state. The challenge in Hafiz's cosmology, then, is for the infinite to contain infinity while remaining finite. The challenge in Hafiz's cosmology, then, is for the finite to contain infinity while remaining finite, and for the infinite to manifest within the finite while remaining infinite. That is, for infinite light to manifest in the depths of limitless darkness without dissolving this darkness. Without dissolving this darkness into light, as we have seen with the pupil of the eye and the beauty mark on the beloved's cheek. If at any time the immeasurably subtle structure of this relationship between the infinite and the finite, and between light and darkness dissolves, the beauty mark on the beloved's cheek will disappear, and you will no longer have the illusory shell of creation producing the pearl of an infinite individuality, and love's problem will not be solved. To review for a moment, to achieve the lover's God-realized state, creation creates an illusory separation within his limitless unity so that love can experience its true nature through expressing love. Love creates this separation by curving its effulgence, this curving providing relativity, volume, and substance, and in the process, creating an apparent other. Again, think of pure light passing through a prism, creating a mirage. God then annihilates this curving in substance, and lover and beloved are reunited. And Hafiz, this annihilation is the annihilation of the relativity and curving that brings creation and the lover into existence. It is not the annihilation of the lover's individuality that his passing through this mirage creates. The final state of love's expression, then, is that the individuality of the lover is maintained after the illusion of creation has produced this new individuality has been removed. We have now arrived at the final state of love in Hafiz's poetry, but having arrived at this, we find there is no final eternal state of rest, as many might expect. In fact, everything, including this reunited God-realized state, exists within the realm of God's limitless and unceasing creativity. When we consider this, it becomes obvious that love is not going to create, indeed cannot create, anything that is not a pure expression of its nature, as nothing other than love exists. This takes us to an understanding of how it is possible to have more than one infinite existence. In fact, an infinite number of infinite existences. Love, of course, will want to give everything it has to this created being, as limitless giving is love's basic nature. So essentially, love will want its created lover to have all that it has, including the most priceless possession of all, an infinite, unconditional, unique existence, as this is all that love has. For love to want its created lover to have anything less than this would make the unconditional, infinite giving of love conditional and finite. And Hafiz makes it clear that finite, conditional giving can never be a part of love. That is, you cannot give a part of the infinite. In love, you can only give the infinite, as love has nothing to do with the finite, as the finite is always created, and the created is nothing and does not exist, as we have seen. Now, the created lover has gained a complete and separate individuality by passing through the sacred darkness of creation. So it too is nothing other than perfect and complete love. So it too will want to give everything it has. That is its very existence, as this is all that it has to its beloved. So essentially, there are now two beloveds and two lovers, each lost in the limitless giving of each to the other. Yet despite this limitless giving, no matter how infinite this giving becomes, each continues to exist. I believe we have now come full circle, having started out presenting Hafiz's cosmology, wherein no creation can take place, as it is impossible to add on to the infinite, to the creation of an eternal, real existence of unlimited individuality, this individuality having been produced by the soul passing through the curved, dark illusion of a created mirage. This means that love's infinity before a new individuality will not be divided or limited, but will remain unlimited, not just because in being uncreated, love lacks the point of origin, this point of origin establishing the force of relativity and all that comes with it, and not just because the new created individuality and having gone through the curved mirage of creation, followed by the annihilation of this curved relativity, also now lacks the same, but because love's infinite giving, combined with the infinite humility love experiences from the resultant infinite receiving, will never allow for anything measurable in the infinity of love to remain. Here we have arrived at the solution to love's problem mentioned above, the ability of love to create another, this creation of another allowing love to express its true nature as love, while also allowing love to maintain its infinite singularity and eternal, united, limitless giving and receiving between lover and beloved. As Hafiz says, "O nightingale of the morning, rejoice, for your heart has become united with the rose, and all of the love songs in the meadow are now yours." O nightingale of the morning, rejoice, for your heart has become united with the rose, and all of the love songs in the meadow are now yours. As there is no end to the giving of love, so too there is no end to love's creativity. No matter how many lovers his limitless beauty kills, another group in love will raise their heads from the unseen. No matter how many lovers his limitless beauty kills, another group in love will raise its head from the unseen. Or, your beauty, like my love, has become perfect. Fortunately, neither will ever decline. Your beauty, like my love, has become perfect. Fortunately, neither will ever decline. Or, as this affair between me and my beloved has no beginning, so too it has no end. As this affair between me and my beloved has no beginning, so too it has no end. Or again, the orbit of sight of the pupil of my eye is the beauty mark of your cheek, the value of a priceless pearl. Only a pearl knows. That's it.